Thank you very much. I'm not going to talk about outlook for copper as we did it for 45 minutes this morning. Looks cool for anybody who wants to invest in copper equities. What's interesting though is that sentiment on copper is spilling out into the multiples at which copper companies are trading. You can clearly see where ACG is on that scale. As my good friend and advisor Robert Friedland say, you tell them in the middle, you tell them in the beginning, you tell them in the middle, you tell them at the end. So this is the beginning in terms of the story of ACG having more to run. We have a very simple business model. Find the good assets, which is very tricky nowadays in the copper space. Do acquire at the good terms, which is even trickier. Finance, invest, improve, makes money, return the cash to investors, and repeat the exercise. We started our life originally as a SPAC and became a small operating company in September of last year. For comparison, I put a picture of my dog, who is 3 years older than ACG Metals. So that's we were a year ago with a market cap of $100 million. 3 months later, we raised $200 million in bonds to finance expansion from gold production into copper production and become a slightly bigger company. Today, we are fully grown up with a market cap of 300 million, still $200 million of bonds outstanding in a very good financial shape. As you can see, the net debt is only 46 million. We have 160 on our balance sheet. And if anything you need to remember about ACG Metals is our strong cash flow generation. This year we'll do 75, probably more, given what happened with the gold prices and the free cash flow. As we move into production of copper by the middle of the next year, our free cash flow will move to roughly $100 million on consensus pricing. Obviously, at spot, that will be higher. The average broker target price forecast is needs to be upgraded. Canaccord have upgraded us yesterday again, but it's still far below the net asset value. And having run 160% in share price, we expect another 200 to 300% up. So investors that have joined me in this journey are very happy so far. I launched originally ACG as a SPAC. So the SPAC sponsors who stayed with us for the last 3 years made 5 times their money so far. The SPAC IPO investors are the funds who came into the SPAC IPO for $125 million. I gave them their money back a year later, so their returns somewhat lower, but that's a low risk return. The Gediktepe deal investors is the people who came into our transaction last year in debt and equity. We repaid debt 3.5 months after the acquisition. So that's a good return for a debt investor. Obviously, the equity investors are the ones that are benefiting the most from September of last year. But the bond investors, which we completed the bond in January of this year, are also sitting on good profit. So one can say, is this all? There is no more. No, there is plenty of juice going forward. We're still trading at 3 times free cash flow, half of the net asset value. And if we believe Warren theory about the multiple expansion, there is more than 200 to 300% going forward. A very strong team. Some of that are present here. I would mention again, Mike Pompeo joined us in January of this year to help us negotiate with the governments in certain jurisdictions. But essentially, the team on both on the board level and the management level that we put together is set to run a much bigger company than we are today. Our first asset, Gediktepe, is on the western side of Turkey, very high grade, 2.3%. Producing gold now to the rate of 36 to 38,000 ounces per year this year, moving into production of copper which is fully funded. We have spent roughly half of the capex required, and another half is to be invested. On the first quartile of the global cost curve on both gold and copper. As I mentioned, very high grade, which compares favorably to anything else you would see in the copper space today. As we all know, the copper grades have been declining globally. We are halfway through completion of our expansion into copper. The brownfield project is very competitive in terms of capital intensity, roughly $7,000 per ton of copper capacity, simply because it's a brownfield project. The mine is there, infrastructure is there, the team is there. The only thing we are building is a flotation circle, a tail dam, and a place for the more employees to live in. We're halfway through, remaining about $70 million capex to be spent, full commercial production by the middle of next year. As I mentioned, the first quartile cost positioning on both gold, with 4,000 gold, having to produce it at 1,000 per ounce. That gives you a sense of the margins we are currently enjoying. But as we move to copper, it is also middle of the first quartile. So high cash flow generation. This is the middle part. Remember, tell them in the beginning, tell them in the middle, tell them at the end. ACG is still very much undervalued, even after the good share run over the last 3.5 months. We're still trading at a very low multiples versus any other sector you can think of. So, going back to our very simple value creation model, we found a good asset with a high copper grade and a Q1 cost positioning. We have acquired that at below 2 times EBITDA, some milestone payments, contingent payments included, but we're very happy to share the upside. We raised $200 million bond to invest in an asset and move it from production of gold into production of copper, also reducing the all-in sustaining cost by 13% in the first half of this year, which is in a high inflationary environment of Turkey, is a good achievement. We're about to start generating even more cash, which will allow us to repay the debt and return funds to the shareholders and repeat the exercise. Where we are going to repeat the exercise is likely to be in a Thessian copper belt where we are today, but we also have opportunities in African copper belt and in South American copper belt. So $100 million market cap, that's where we were a year ago. Today we are $300 million. Without doing anything else and without any multiple expansion, we are on a set to be $500 million company shortly as we complete our transition from gold into copper. The next acquisition should take us over $1 billion. The vision for us is to get to be a $3 to $5 billion company within 2 to 3 years. Thank you.